guys, it's Kira and welcome to another vlog. Today is Friday the 8th of October, which means that this evening the Fall Into Autumn Readathon starts, and I'm so excited to just have the coziest and most autumnal weekend ever because, I mean, who doesn't like the sound of that? If you didn't catch my announcement video for this readathon, it is something that I'm hosting alongside my friend Meg from the channel Pride and Fiction for the second year in a row. We had such a fun time doing this readathon last year and we both love autumn so much that we couldn't wait to host it again this year, and the first proper weekend of October felt like the perfect opportunity to just embrace all of the cozy vibes and just have a readathon entirely dedicated to all of the best things about the best season. And with that in mind, although this is a readathon and I will of course be doing some reading this weekend, which I'll talk to you about in just a moment, the overall vibe that I'm going for this weekend is just to embrace all of my favourite things about this season, do some fun cozy autumn activities and just give myself a weekend to chill out and enjoy what is one of my favourite times of the year. Barring Christmas and my birthday, October is like my favourite time of the year, so I always love to do as much as I can to hype up the season, hype up this month and just enjoy it as much as possible. And of course, one of the loveliest things to do when it is cold outside and you have a wonderful hot drink in hand is reading, and as promised I'm going to be trying to do a little bit more reading this weekend than I would typically do, and that I've certainly been doing recently because my reading has been not good lately, but a whole weekend dedicated to autumn reading sounds like a wonderful way to get back on track. So there are two books that I'm planning to focus my attention on this weekend. The first one is our group pick that me and Meg will both be reading, and that is the Jane Austen Society by Natalie Jenner. This is absolutely perfect for me in general, but especially right now because I'm currently hosting a Jane Austen read-along 6 months where we're basically reading all of Jane Austen's completed novels, and it just seems like a fun way to get in even more of an Austen spirit because this is all about people who are trying to celebrate and resurrect the history of Austen and protect its heritage, and I feel like it's just going to be a really good vibe. It's set just after World War II, so it's a historical fiction. I don't read many historical fictions, but because this one is a Jane Austen themed one, it seems like I will really enjoy it. So this is the first pick and probably the one that I'm going to prioritise the most given that it is our group pick. But then the second one, I've decided that, when it comes to autumn reading, I feel like there are two distinct categories. There is the cozy and heartwarming and just general good vibes books like the Jane Austen Society, and then there are the more sort of dark, spooky, mysterious, Halloween-y themed reads, and I feel like the next book I've picked kind of is at the intersection of both of those types of genres because I've picked up the Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. I'm a big fan of Richard Osman. He is just such a great personality, but I haven't read his book yet, and it's obviously a murder mystery, but it is kind of in the Agatha Christie style of a small town murder mystery, I think, surrounding a club in a peaceful retirement village. 4 unlikely friends meet up once a week to investigate unsolved murders. So I feel because it's obviously set in a retirement village, it's going to have small town mystery vibes, kind of I'm getting Hot Fuzz vibes, if anyone's seen the film Hot Fuzz. I feel like it's going to be a bit of an unlikely location for something dramatic to happen, and I think it's going to be really fun. Now, that is what I'm going to be focused on reading this weekend throughout the readathon, but I also wanted to mention that to kick off this reading weekend, I'm actually going to be jumping onto a live reading sprint session with my friend Mary on her channel because we are also co-hosting a buddy read of It by Stephen King. So I'm not going to be reading this book throughout the rest of the weekend, but I will be doing some reading sprints of it right now to kickstart the weekend of reading, and to be quite frank, it couldn't get more spooky and Halloween-y and autumnal than it. So yeah, that's what I'm going to be starting my reading with. And then aside from that, one of the other things that we're going to be doing this weekend is watching some shows that kind of remind us of autumn. Now, to me, what reminds me of autumn when it comes to TV shows can either be something that I have watched in autumn before, so it reminds me of that season, or just has a general nostalgic or cozy vibe that doesn't necessarily need to even be set in autumn, but just gives me those autumnal spirit vibes, and I could watch them at any time of year and feel the coziness that I get from the season of autumn. So some of the things on my radar are Gilmore Girls, which just has an autumnal aesthetic. I just love it so much, as we well know. Also, The Crown, which has a very nostalgic feel, even though I've only watched it once before. I think because it's obviously set in the past of the royal family, so it's kind of like nostalgic about their lives. And then also I watched The Crown for the first time last November, and I have this distinct memory that I came home one day from teaching a yoga class in an old mansion at the studio that I used to teach at in Leeds, and the mansion was beautiful but freezing cold. In some of the videos on my yoga channel you can actually see my breath when I'm breathing out loud because it was that cold in there. So I'm definitely going to be, I feel like because I came home from this yoga class, gone off track already in my mind, but I went home, got in bed, had a hot water bottle and a cup of tea and watched the first episode of The Crown. I just get this immensely cozy vibe now when I think about the show. And then something else that always makes me feel just happy to watch is Grey's Anatomy. So although it's not autumnal in the sense of like its theme or setting, I just feel like it feels nostalgic, cozy and just generally a nice vibe for me to go back and rewatch. So those are some of the things that I'm going to be watching this evening. I'm going to do some reading, but first of all I need to quickly go and get on these live sprints because it is almost time for them to start. Good morning guys. So as you can probably tell, after I did those reading sprints with Mary yesterday evening, which were, by the way, such a fun way to kickstart this weekend, I ended up spending the rest of the evening just watching Grey's Anatomy, which I've just restarted from the very beginning, and then I got a super early night, like 8:30 in bed. Was amazing because I was just so tired, but I am now very excited to properly kickstart the readathon this morning. I actually have already done a little bit of reading today because I'm currently reading Pride and Prejudice for my Jane Austen read along, and I was listening to the audiobook of Pride and Prejudice at the gym this morning because my Pride and Prejudice live show is actually this evening and I still had a few chapters left to finish, and I feel like that has really got me excited to start the Jane Austen Society later on today. But first things first, keeping on the train of not doing any reading in a readathon, one of the other prompts that Meg and I set out for this readathon was to make your favourite cozy hot drink that reminds you of autumn. So Jay and I are just heading out into town this morning to do a little bit of shopping, and I'm going to nip into Pret and get my favourite drink of all time, which is an oat milk chai latte. Fingers crossed I am anyway, because the last few times I've been in Pret recently, they've been out of chai and it has broken my heart. So fingers crossed they have chai. If not, I think it'll be a hot chocolate for me, but either way I will be treating myself to a very cozy hot drink and then coming home to get on with some reading. Saturday afternoon and I genuinely feel like time-wise today is literally just flashing before my eyes. I do not know where the day has gone, but in better news, I picked up this mug in Urban Outfitters today. The purpose of our shopping trip this morning was to go buy presents for my brother's birthday, which is in a couple of weeks, Jay's little sister's birthday, which is next week, and then just to go for coffee. But when we were in Urban Outfitters looking for presents, I saw this mug and I mean, look at his face, I just couldn't leave it behind. So this is obviously great addition to the weekend. I am obsessed. It's also so smooth. I honestly, goals. I'm obviously doing a pottery course at the moment, or at least this is obvious to me because I'm doing it. You guys might not know, but I'm doing a pottery course at the moment and this type of mug is just absolute goals. So this is definitely a positive to today, and then the other positive to this day is this book, which I have now finally started. The Jane Austen Society, straight after finishing Pride and Prejudice, is a really fun way to read this novel. I'm only a few chapters in and I'm already really liking it, but I'm very intrigued by how the novel starts. So I think yesterday I kind of gave you an overview that it is set in the village that Jane Austen grew up in and where she wrote all of her novels. And it is set just after World War II, and there are a group of people from all different walks of life coming together to try and preserve like the history and heritage of Jane Austen and everything that she did that was so amazing. So really great concept, and as a fan of Jane Austen, I'm obviously behind that concept entirely. But the way that it's starting is really intriguing because the first few chapters jump through a few different decades. So we start in chapter 1 in June 1932. It then goes to October 1943, so like 10 years ahead, and then we go up to September 1945. So we're already going through quite a few, and I'm thinking that once the war is over and it settles into the general plot, it might slow down a little bit, but this has been an interesting way to get to know some of the main characters, and I'm really enjoying it so far, so I can't wait to read more this afternoon and evening. Now, in other news, obviously I have my Jane Austen Pride and Prejudice live show this evening, so I'm going to be doing that very shortly, but in the interim, I feel like I really want to do some baking. You might be able to see behind me, I've already done some baking this afternoon. I made a focaccia, which is going to be on my food channel for my Bake Off vegan bake along series, but I also fancy making some cinnamon rolls, and I keep seeing on TikTok this 2-ingredient dough that's literally just made with yogurt and self-raising flour. I will obviously be using vegan yogurt, but the benefit of that is that you don't need to let the dough rise. So I'm going to make them super simple, like a small batch of vegan cinnamon rolls, do a little bit more reading, and then get on my Jane Austen live show.
Are turning brown, red and yellow, soon they'll be falling down. Now, I'm not ready, not just yet. I'm not ready for autumn. Autumn comes too soon. Autumn comes too soon. The light that flickers will blow away the sun. Just yet, I'm not ready for autumn. autumn comes too soon. I'm not ready for autumn. Autumn comes too soon. Autumn comes too soon. Autumn comes too soon.
I think we can all agree that Sunday mornings are just the best. There's just something about them where I feel like time seems to last longer on Sunday mornings. So already today, it's like 9:30 currently, and I have been to the gym, come home, had the most amazing shower, obviously that is why my hair is still a bit wet looking, then lit a candle, made a coffee, sat down, did some reading, and it's only 9:30 and I feel like I've done so much already, but it hasn't felt rushed. It's just been very nice and cozy and relaxing, and I still have a whole day worth of Sunday left to enjoy, which is just wonderful. But on the topic of reading, which is what I have been doing since getting home from the gym, I am really enjoying the Jane Austen Society because it is bringing together so many themes and styles of writing that I enjoy on their own, but it's bringing together these things that I wouldn't normally expect to see together in one novel, and yet it just feels so natural. So of course Jane Austen and classical literature is a key part of this novel because all of the characters within it have some kind of interest or connection to Jane Austen and her works, and so we have this presence of classical literature, but this book itself obviously isn't a classic, so classics are kind of taking up one section of the novel. Then most of the book, as I mentioned yesterday, is taking place in a village where Jane Austen lived and wrote her novels, and so we have this big house where her family was connected to, and there's still like a very wealthy family within this house at the time. And then we also have the village surrounding the big house where we have, you know, like farmers, doctors, teachers, and all of the normal people kind of living and working and just existing in their everyday lives. And then there are people from within the village who work at the big house, and I just watched Downton Abbey recently for the very first time, and it's giving me very much Downton Abbey vibes with like this big fancy wealthy family trying to sort of preserve the heritage and lifestyle that they have been used to for so many generations, but being that it's set after World War II, the way that society works and the way that these big families function is obviously changing quite rapidly, and then, you know, people who are working class are kind of coming up a bit more and are not necessarily reliant on these big rich families and their big huge houses for their employment, and so there's a lot of shifts in society in that sense, and so that sort of like societal change post-war situation is taking up quite a big portion of the novel as well. And then one of the key characters who is interested in preserving Jane Austen and her heritage and history is actually an American movie star. So she is in Hollywood for the like initial portion of the novel, and she is like in her 30s. She was like this Hollywood starlet, and this novel, for anyone who is a fan of Taylor Jenkins Reid and has read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, this character Mimi kind of has a little bit of a similarity to Evelyn in the sense that she is dealing with all of the sexism and misogyny that happens within Hollywood at this time, and it's dealing with the theme of how these stars were kind of manipulated and misled by the labels and sort of like production companies that assigned them, and how they were kind of chained to these huge and like bulletproof contracts and didn't really have much autonomy over what they did, and just, yeah, it's really interesting. So there's like lots of different things going on. We've got like the classic historical fiction side, which is like the bit that's set in the village. We've got like classics in terms of Jane Austen, and then we have like a Hollywood star situation going on. Lots of things that you wouldn't expect to necessarily be together, but it's working so well and I'm loving it. At the part of the novel that I'm at currently, it's still very much just introducing us to the characters and their storylines, and I'm really liking getting to know them all. So this has been a really fun book to start this weekend, and I'm glad that I'm enjoying it as much as I am. So in terms of my plans for the rest of today, I'm planning to have a very, very fun Sunday. First of all, this book is going to be taking up quite a bit of my day, but right now me and Jay are heading out to go and grab a coffee, and actually what I really want to grab is banana bread. There is a cafe near us which does the most amazing vegan banana bread amongst lots of other amazing vegan things, but I would love a slice of that banana bread for my breakfast this morning. Then later on today my friend Sarah's coming round, we're going to have dinner together, and in the midst I'm sure I'll be watching some Grey's Anatomy, reading my book and just enjoying Sunday for all of the wonder that it offers me. So with that said, I'm going to go and get my banana bread. Hey guys, so the weekend is now sadly over, and that means that technically the Fall Into Autumn Readathon is also over, but to that I say no. I make the rules around here and I'm continuing because I have just really enjoyed embracing all of the cosy autumn vibes these last couple of days, and today is a very grey, very rainy, very cold day, and I quite frankly just want to keep making myself feel as cosy as possible. And with that in mind, I wanted to tell you about this drink that I've just made myself because it is so delicious and so cosy. It was actually inspired by my friend Em, who just shared on her Instagram story that she had made a Biscoff latte, which was essentially just a coffee, and then she stirred into the coffee a teaspoon of Biscoff, which is my favourite thing in the whole wide world. It's just incredible. Now, I do love coffee, however, I wasn't really feeling a coffee this afternoon, so instead I have basically just made a warm Biscoff drink, kind of like a hot chocolate, but instead of chocolate, the flavour is Biscoff, because who doesn't want that? I literally just warmed up some coconut almond milk and then stirred in a couple of teaspoons of Biscoff, and it tastes divine, so cosy, so luxurious, and I love it. I definitely would enjoy the coffee version as well, but I just wasn't feeling coffee this afternoon. But if there are any of you guys out there who don't really like tea and coffee, because I know you people exist even though it's not something that I understand, then this is a great alternative along with like chai lattes, because you get a nice warm cozy drink but you don't have to have anything with caffeine in if that is not your jam. So this is making me very happy. Another thing that I'm very happy about today is that it is Tuesday the 12th of October, and today is actually mine and Jay's 8-year anniversary, which is so wild to say. We started going out when we were 16 and we're now 24, which is wild, and I can't believe it's been 8 years, but at the same time it feels like it's been forever. So always fun to have an anniversary, although I feel like probably a lot of people who've been in relationships for like quite a few years will share the same sentiment, that like the effort you go to on an anniversary in terms of like buying fancy presents and going out for these big meals definitely dwindles as the years go by, and instead we're doing what we actually love to do, and tonight we're just going to watch a film and get pizza, and I can't wait, because what could be better than that? And then on the topic of continuing my autumn readathon, the main reason I want to do that, aside from just enjoying the cosy autumn vibes, is because of this lovely book that I just haven't had enough time to finish reading yet, because I am really, really enjoying this book for all of the reasons that I've said so far, which is essentially just that it's all about Jane Austen, which I'm very much in the mood for at the moment given my Austen read-along, and just in general it's a really lovely vibe, but it's also just bringing up so many great things, and I made the comparison to Downton Abbey and I'm just getting those Downton Abbey vibes so strongly, and I'm just loving every single page of this novel. It simultaneously has some really like serious, harrowing themes and just more light-hearted love of literature, cosy book club vibes, and I'm just really, really enjoying seeing how the story pans out. I'm now on page 157, and the book has in total just over 300, so I'm pretty much exactly halfway in, and they've only just established the Jane Austen Society, which is what I expected the book to mostly be about, but actually they spend the first half of the novel introducing us to the characters and setting up how each of them has connected with Jane Austen, and generally speaking these characters are kind of coming to Jane Austen in times of like peril or darkness and finding just like so much light and humour and guidance within Jane Austen's words, which I just think is so beautiful. And so now at this point they've all kind of come together with this shared goal and ambition of preserving the heritage of Jane Austen's works and her life, and I just think it's so lovely. So I'm really enjoying this. I'll probably try and get some reading done this afternoon after I finish work. I'm currently on my lunch break now, and before Jay gets home for our little pizza date and movie night. So I'll probably try and get a few pages done then, and then tomorrow afternoon I don't really have anything on the agenda, so I will do some more reading, and hopefully it won't take me too long because it is a really fun, quick, easy read. It's just I haven't had loads of time over the weekend to do that much reading because I've been busy with some other things. And then I guess the final thing to update you guys on, seeing as we're just having a nice little chat, is that this week obviously I am at work currently, but it's a bit of a weird one because I'm actually moving to a new job next week. So I've been working out my notice period at my current job and this is my final week, and it's gotten to the point now where like most of my tasks and like responsibilities have been handed over to newer people, so I'm kind of like few jobs still left to do, but I don't have loads to do, and I'm just very, very excited to start my new job next week. It's in marketing. For anyone that doesn't know, I already work in digital marketing, but I've previously worked within the tourism sector, and I'm actually moving to a marketing role at a mental health charity, which I'm so excited about because it's something that I'm really, really passionate about, and it'll be really amazing to use my marketing skills for something that is just like a really great cause. So that's me. Those are my updates. Would recommend the Biscoff latte. I'm going to go back for an afternoon of working and then catch up with you later on for some reading of the Jane Austen Society, pizza, and whatever movie me and Jay decided to watch. So it is now Wednesday, and last night's anniversary pizza date movie night situation was so much fun. We ended up watching Shaun of the Dead, which was obviously a rewatch because it's such an old film, but we wanted something that was funny, not too long, and also that we didn't really have to pay too much attention to, because my attention span for films is horrific, so rewatching always helps because then if I'm distracted I still kind of know what's going on. But what I didn't realise was when I was watching it I saw a person and I just couldn't believe who it was, because as you may or may not know, I recently just watched Downton Abbey for the first time within about 2 weeks. Me and Jay watched all of the seasons and the movie, and obviously one of the main characters in Downton Abbey is Isabel Crawley, and she is wonderful in Downton, and she is also Shaun's mum in Shaun of the Dead, which I just thought was such a funny coincidence because I obviously had seen that many years prior but didn't know who she was at that point, so that was a fun little coinky dink. And now, like I mentioned, it's Wednesday and I'm very happy to report that on my lunch break today I did manage to finish off reading the Jane Austen Society, which I really enjoyed. This was such a fantastic blend of so many different elements. We of course had the like historical quaint village setting was the nicest thing about this novel because it was just really wholesome and kind of gives me vibes of some of my favourite types of romances like Jenny Colgan's Christmas at the Island Hotel, where there's like a real nice small town community spirit, so that was a big part of this novel. We also had them kind of like rallying behind a cause, we had them all kind of like coming together, these unlikely people making friends and just like getting behind this really important thing that they're all like excited to champion, which being obviously Jane Austen and her heritage and preserving that. We also had to deal with all of these characters, various different interactions with each other, romances, heartbreaks, all of that, as well as their own like personal issues that they're going through. So there was a lot jam-packed into this relatively small novel. It's about 300 pages long, and yet it didn't feel rushed, it didn't feel oversaturated, and I think it just blended together all of the elements I've mentioned so incredibly well, and I loved it. So would highly recommend this to anyone who obviously loves Jane Austen because that is a key part of this novel, and it also offers some really interesting insights and analyses of Jane Austen's novels, and it's really interesting to see which of the characters like which Jane Austen novels best and which characters they all gravitate towards, which obviously is kind of like a reflection of the author's opinions, but it was still really fun to see those different conversations about Jane Austen's works and the impact of her novels woven in throughout this novel, and I kind of like that intertextuality. But yeah, so I'd recommend it to Jane Austen fans. I would recommend it to anyone who loves small town vibes, loves Downton Abbey because it has that similar vibe like I mentioned with the big house and then the villagers, and it was just absolutely wonderful. And that, I think, will bring, it's technically Wednesday, so I was going to say my fabulous autumn weekend to an end, but it's more of an extended autumn weekend, but that's even better in my opinion. So I hope you've enjoyed seeing everything that I got up to over the last few days. I certainly enjoyed getting cozy, reading a wonderful book, and enjoying all the cinnamon rolls and cups of tea. Meg's vlog will also be up for the Fall Into Autumn Readathon now, so I'll link that down below if you want to go and check out her weekend as well, and also see her thoughts on the Jane Austen Society, which she was also reading over the weekend. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.